I'm going to do a quick intro for everybody. So I can't do on my left, on my right, because that means nothing on this grid. Second. But
I'm in a mess.
I have our two panelists today. We have Brendan Dorr from Baltimore. He has a bar called Dutch Courage, and much like our other guest, if he ever emails you, there's like 17 things in his email signature for all the things that he does, including the creation of the Rise Up event that they do every year. We'll talk about it a little bit later. They raise money for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, and you know, basically one of the old farts of the Baltimore bar scene, who's really been crushing it since day one. And then our other ginger that's with us today is Ryan Maybee, who you guys all know. He's one of our Shaker and Spoon alum, and actually has a cocktail in the upcoming. I keep wanting to say "All Rise on Me" because that's
you should have called this one Rye and Ginger.
Yeah, that's the name of our unofficial name of the happy hour today is Rye and Ginger. Thank you. He is one of our contributors, our featured bartenders for the All Eyes on Rye box, which, as you know, comes out next week. And so they're both here to chat with us. We're going to dive into Brendan right away because he is actually in an open, functional bar right now. We want him to be able to dive in and tell us about what he's doing today.
Sure.
We're ready for it.
What do you want to know? You want to know about Rise Up?
I want to start off by having you tell us about why rye is important to you,
Sure.
Being in Maryland, because I think that a lot of people don't really know that connection.
Absolutely. So if you don't know anything about whiskey, rye whiskey, or just a lot of whiskey in this country did not originate in Kentucky and Tennessee or Ohio. It started in Maryland and Pennsylvania and Virginia. It started here right on the East Coast. And I mean, that's where all the original colonies were. And the reason rye started is because rye is such a hardy grain. But Maryland is a weird little microclimate, and we get really hot summers and we get cold winters we get frost, and it can be really hot and really cold. So rye is a really hardy grain that grew well in the Eastern Shore soils that were not perfect for growing a lot of crops on. And then Maryland created its own style of rye. And I say that because now we have these really high rye content, high rye grain content rye whiskeys. But originally, they weren't that way. Maryland rye was known as being a very almost fruit forward, fruit estery kind of rye, because it also incorporated a heavy amount of corn and malted barley in it. And so it is not that high rye content rye that we've come to know now. And not until probably the Whiskey Rebellion in the late 1700s did you see whiskey start to kind of relocate down to Kentucky and Tennessee as people started heading out west, which at that point, Kentucky and Tennessee was going west. That's when we saw people start making
I think that they're on the Pacific, basically.
What?
Tennessee and Kentucky.
Oh, they are. Okay. I mean, they're right. They're like one state over from you, right, Donnie?
Oh yeah, they're right next door. It's like in Waiting for Guffman where they hit Missouri and they're like, you can smell the ocean air.
Oh yeah. So rye whiskey has long-time roots to Maryland. I mean, we've had really great original brands like Pikesville, which has been a love of Baltimore bartenders for a long time. And then you even ended up have this other style of rye that was a little more northwestern Maryland, or southwestern Pennsylvania, called Monongahela rye. And that was a little spicier, a little kind of bolder style rye, maybe a little more towards what we know of rye whiskey these days. but that was a whole different style. And it's named after the Monongahela River.
And do you have to say it 3 times quickly, correctly, in order for like the rye to magically appear in your home?
You do. No one's in here, so you can actually see my face now.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, one of the things that's really difficult is like, I know that it's you talking and the green square is around you,
yeah.
but...
So here's my face. Yeah.
Welcome. It's nice to see the entirety of your face.
Thank you.
Tell us about the cocktail that you are going to be making and how that cocktail also has a history in Maryland.
Sure. So a cocktail that I'm going to demo for you today is the Diamondback. And that's one of the classic cocktails that Baltimore, Maryland is known for. It was from the Diamondback Lounge, which was in the Lord Baltimore Hotel downtown. The Lord Baltimore is still there. They opened up the Diamondback Lounge, I don't know, we'll say within the past 5 years. And hopefully they're serving a good Diamondback there, because if it's your namesake, you better know how to really make it well, right? But yeah, it's a super simple cocktail for people to make at home. 3 ingredients: rye whiskey, chartreuse. Sometimes you see recipes with yellow. Sometimes probably the original recipe was going to be with green. So today we're going to use some green chartreuse and then some apple brandy. And calling on, if we're going to go talk about old cocktails, old spirits, rye whiskey being old, we're going with the oldest apple brandy in the U.S. I think they have the oldest operating license at this point. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Laird's out of New Jersey. So Laird's 7.5-year-old. That is a staple to have, in my opinion. So here, I'm going to move a couple bottles out of the way. I have Rittenhouse here. I have Wild Turkey 101. But we're going to go with one of Baltimore's new rye whiskeys, Sagamore. So this is pretty readily available now, getting to be more readily available across the U.S. So like I said, super, super easy recipe. It is a 2-1-1 ratio. So how you make this cocktail, you can do 2 parts of anything you want. But we're going to do, for cocktail-wise, we're going to do 1.5 ounces of rye whiskey. So that's now in there. And you can do it in a mixing glass. You can do it in a pint glass. I have it in our nice little mixing glass here. 3/4 of an ounce. So this is your 1 ratio. 3/4 of an ounce of green chartreuse. And then finishing off with delicious Laird's 7.5-year-old apple brandy. Also 3/4 of an ounce. So get that in there.
So a quick note for everybody. Tonight actually is a Jewish holiday called Purim, which is not among the holidays that people know about for the most part. But the thing and how it's related to our evening together tonight is that one of the good deeds on this holiday is they read a story about King Ahasuerus, and one of the rules is that you get so drunk that you cannot tell the difference between the protagonist and the antagonist of the story. So, I mean, obviously in the most responsible way possible, but I just want to let you know this is all our way of like sort of dipping the toe in the holiday water and, you know, being part of it. So congratulations, everybody.
There's also a really good cocktail for that, because this is a pretty strong cocktail. So this will get you going. I mean, you better be careful with what rye you use. I mean, I'm a big proponent of like high rye or high alcohol whiskeys, just because they taste great in cocktails. You really get that big bold flavor, a little bit of heat from the cocktail, which makes it nice and delicious. But yeah, so this cocktail is simple. Just give it a few stirs. I always love to give this tidbit. If you don't have a fancy bar spoon and you're not used to stirring cocktails at home, you're just mixing in a pint glass. One thing that everybody has at home is a chopstick, and kind of just like using this end of the bar spoon, the teardrop end, you can just move the ice around, kind of keep it on the end. And it's just a really easy little trick to do at home, because not everybody has the tools, and it is a weird little skill to be able to stir a cocktail. So this cocktail served in an up cocktail glass. So this one is a nice little fancy coupe that we have here at Dutch Courage. And just strain this cocktail out.
Oh,
Some
look at
people,
your professional strain. You've done this before.
oh yeah, once or twice.
Yeah.
So this cocktail, sometimes people like to garnish it with like with a cherry. I've seen people do a little twist. Personally, I think this cocktail is great without a garnish. I think it's one of those cocktails that doesn't need a garnish, which once again makes it simple to do at home. You've now created this beautiful, wonderful cocktail, and you're just like, and voila, it is done. It is ready for you, my friend. So, cheers. The
Cheers.
Diamondback.
Cheers, everybody. Oh, that's where my glass kind of sort of shows up.
And if you're curious where the name comes from, it comes from the terrapin, not not like a Diamondback rattlesnake. It's not named after it's named after a terrapin, a turtle.
That's what the hotel named itself after?
Well, the lounge, yeah.
You also have the lounge in the Baltimore hotel. I got you.
Yeah.
And you have
the Maryland terrapins.
As in the Maryland Doors?
Yeah.
Oh, Brendan Dorr of the Maryland Doors. Yes, the Baltimore Doors.
The Maryland Doors, yes. We're prolific. We're prolific out here, Tony.
We do have a couple questions for you already.
Cool.
Some questions, a little Q&A for you. Paul asked right at the beginning, what is rye whiskey? Why is it so important? But
I can also answer why it's so important.
In addition to that, I kind of want to ask you if you have, and this is obviously completely subjective, but
thanks, man. Have a good one.
I have in my head, by the way, it's so nice that there's we're in an operating bar right now. It's very
people just walked by and said thank you.
How do you normally characterize the difference flavor profile wise between rye that people are accustomed to and Maryland rye? I have in my head how I describe it to a guest, but
I just try to say that it's a softer style rye, like we were saying, not the same high rye content rye, so it's not as spicy as we're accustomed to. I think there are even instances there. It's also a fruitier rye. You get more fruit esters from the distillate itself, and I think there are even instances. Ryan might be able to answer this really well, where people added even fruit to the distillate to kind of heighten and strengthen those fruit notes. And I believe I've read something that maybe Dave Wondrich wrote, or maybe Dave told me about it one time, but that it was that they would add it to like plums specifically. I'm pretty sure I recall that in the back.
That actually does sound familiar, and when you brought that up, I was like, that sounds like a David Wondrich question for me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I can answer that with a lot of confidence, but it does sound familiar. I also want to say, and I'm kind of digging deep here too, but I want to say that the original Maryland rye was distilled in a very special, unique, distinctive type of still with like 3 separate chambers in the column.
It kind of looks like a combo still, like a pot with a column on it. Leopold Brothers in Denver actually worked with Dave to create that style still. And so they are making a Maryland style rye whiskey. It's young also. It's not aged very old. I don't think they even aged them up to 2 years. Like, it's not a straight rye.
It's always interesting. Like, for example, I mean, for those of you who don't know already, like, Ryan is one of the founders and owners over at J. Rieger Co. Whiskey in Kansas City. And, did a lot of research into how spirits are categorized within the United States. And it was really interesting. Part of the reason why their whiskey is interesting is because of the fact that he found that you can still categorize something within American whiskey and have it have, up to 2.5% sherry? Or
up to 2. Well, yeah, it's up to 2.5% sherry. Basically, what we discovered was that legally you can add up to 2.5% sherry and it can still be classified as American whiskey, but it doesn't actually have its own category. And this is all because of a law that was written in 1934 right after Prohibition was repealed, and it was referencing things that were happening back in the 1800s that were really common, but Prohibition kind of like wiped all that out. And then it was a very long, old kind of abandoned law that we found. And we've also found a lot of evidence supporting the common use of sherry in whiskey back then.
It just made me think of that because of what Brendan mentioned regarding potentially throwing plum or other fruit into the still. I wonder whether when folks are trying to, recreate Maryland rye, as far as the flavor profile goes, I wonder if they were not reading the recipes so much as somebody had an old bottle, or they were reading someone's description of the product, and they're like, well, how do we recreate that? And so they made that sort of like softer, less peppery, less spicy rye, not knowing that one of the ingredients they were potentially leaving out of it was, a fruit of some kind.
Yeah, could have been. You do have a couple of questions about chartreuse in your thread. I opened up the chat thread.
Yes.
People have mentioned, why is it so expensive, or that it is expensive? And somebody did comment and said 375 milliliter bottles, so the half-size bottles, are a good way to go if you don't want to put up $60 or so for a bottle of chartreuse. And somebody said that their husband thinks it tastes like NyQuil. That's good for you. Let them keep thinking it tastes like NyQuil. Because it is delicious. It is definitely a caught favorite among bartenders.
Hey, Brendan, I've got a question for you on the Diamondback. Sure. It's obviously a classic. It's one that I'm familiar with, but I don't really know all the history of it. And you mentioned that you could use either chartreuse. I mean, there's a big difference between green chartreuse and yellow chartreuse. And personally, I mean, just looking at the structure of the drink, I would probably prefer yellow chartreuse in the cocktail.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, which one of them was the original origin of the drink? Do you know?
I believe the green was the original.
Just date wise, we have somebody here on the call that we can ask that. Ethan, do you know what the date is of the release of yellow? Do you know what year it came out?
Yeah, it's actually new news, interestingly enough. For years and years, we thought that the green came first and that the yellow was developed separately and then released separately. We just released a book on chartreuse, so we had to go back to the archives and really dig through the dates. And it turns out that we've been wrong for a long time, and they were released and probably imported at the exact same time, which doesn't help us answer this question at all. It could have been either one. Green was probably more popular, like Brendan said, at the time, but they were both available, so it could have been either.
So basically, thank you for the info, and now you've caused more confusion. Mute yourself.
Absolutely. See you guys later.
That's really interesting. I actually had no idea. I would have just assumed, based on time frame, Brendan, what you said before, that it almost had to be green. But
I would have thought so. But I mean, green, to Ryan's comments, green is a much more, let's say, aggressive choice for the cocktail. I think the yellow, somebody said it in the comments, it's a little softer, it's much more mild, the alcohol is lower, so it does kind of lend itself a little bit more towards the cocktail. But I also know that here in Baltimore, a ton of people love to make it with the green. So, and I don't know, maybe the green was first, maybe it was yellow.
This is also like an interesting way to talk about something that we get often in questions, which is, hey, I found this recipe online, but I'm finding conflicting recipes. This happens all the time. And so we always, try to encourage, folks that are Shaker and Spoon subscribers, or people that are interested in cocktails, to look in a couple different sources. So just on this one alone, I think I remember about a year ago, what's the name of the Calvados that Tim Judge put out? Starts with an A. I haven't seen it here in the US yet, but it's a really outstanding product. If you go to Difford's Guide says, Rye whiskey, at least, that's bonded, so 50% ABV. yellow chartreuse, and then Calvados. And that was the first time I'd seen that. And of course, like conceptually, that sounds amazing. That would be a really incredible cocktail. Even if you were using a higher ABV non-Maryland rye, it's probably going to end up tasting like the original cocktail because, again, they're using like a really sharp, dry Calvados along with it. So it's always worth checking multiple sources, and you may end up discovering a new product that way. Just make sure that you're using, reputable sources to find, these recipes in the first place. Are there ones that either of you guys find as a staple where you look things up online?
As far as
recipes, you're like, I wonder what such and such as specs are in that particular drink, and you look it up.
I mean, Wondrich is the authority on the original recipes a lot of times. So sometimes when I'm curious on a cocktail I haven't built that's a old cocktail, I will lean toward him. But I don't know. I don't have anything. I don't have a go-to spot.
Donnie, I in my mid to late 20s, I spent way too much money on old cocktail books to not use them when I have the opportunity. So that's I kind of resort to that. But if I'm going online, I think Differ's Guide is maybe the most reliable. But there's just there's such a vast range of differing information out there, even on reputable sites. It's just hard to know for sure.
Yeah, and it's always best to check at least 2, if not 3, because you'll find liquor.com will have one that are usually like the standards. Difford's Guide is a very interesting take on how the UK and European bartenders approach some of those cocktails. But you'll always find discrepancies, and it's pretty fun. Sometimes you'll discover, again with the Diamondback, using yellow chartreuse and Calvados.
You also see a little bit of a differing proportions for the recipe.
For sure, that's usually the biggest sweeping change. Even if you,
absolutely.
If you look up a Singapore Sling, you'll find minimum 7 different recipes on different sites.
Mai Tai.
Even all using Mai Tais, for sure. Like a lot of multi-layered tiki drinks or tropical blends of multiple rums. It's going to be all over the place.
Yeah. Somebody asked what the site I mentioned. I didn't really mention a site. I mentioned a person, Dave Wondrich, who wrote Imbibe and Punch and was the cocktail the cocktail aficionado for Esquire magazine for a long time. He's also one of the partners of Beverage Alcohol Resource, which does the Bar Smarts program as well as Bar 5 Day.
If you're ever curious about, quote unquote, the original recipe, like how the recipe was originally in an old book, if you can't stop by Ryan's house to look through his library, if that's not convenient for your schedule, you can find a lot of those, in the posts from Dave Wondrich, which are still up on Esquire. So if you type in Dave Wondrich, and the Old Holland cocktail, like a lot of the, original recipes, you're going to find them there. But I
also would say follow him on Twitter because he's always on there and he is very responsive. And I'll even sometimes if I have a question, if I don't want to dig around in the books or online, I'll just tag him and be like, hey, what do you think about this? And it usually ends up in a long conversation. But he's a great resource. He's the best.
Yeah, I shot him a question the other day.
But keep in mind, same thing. Each of those sites that when you're looking for a recipe, have their own biases. Dave's bias is that he goes with original recipe and he loves booze. So if it's if it's a drink that has a boozy version or a less boozy version, if you like boozy, Dave's version of those cocktails are going to be great for you. If you like things a little bit lighter, keep that in mind when you're asking him for a sour recipe or, something that's boozy and stirred. But either way, sorry, Paul, what does that say? Oh yeah, that's nice. Either way, if you're always checking a couple different resources at a time, you'll be in good hands. Brendan, how are you on time? I know that you have.
I'm all right. It's like I said, it's 50 degrees out today, which is warm right now. and it's kind of quiet. It's oddly quiet. I don't know what's going on tonight.
Okay.
We have like a construction crew right out front of our place tonight, digging holes in the pavement. So maybe that's not helping.
I mean, unless they just all come in for drinks.
Yeah. Just start hitting them bottles of rye.
So,
but I got a little more time.
Maybe once they unplug the jackhammer, you can give them hard alcohol. But other than that, yeah. Ryan, questions for you. First of all, were you named after Rye Whiskey? Is that true?
Yeah, it is true. And my birthday is also on Repeal Day.
Okay. So, little known fact. Want everybody to know that he's actually
his name is Rye.
I want you to share with with the group like what it is about Rye Whiskey that you love. Like, I'm actually going to post everybody's handles up here real quick so that you guys have. So Ryan's handle is Roundtable Rye. So you can talk about that. I just want you to talk about your love of rye and also what inspired you to make your, I mean, don't give away too much of the surprise that people are going to get when they get the box.
Yeah.
But a little bit of the inspiration that you had when you made the Creole Sling, because that information's out there already.
Sure. So the first off, what do I love about Rye Whiskey? The first thing is I love how it's in my opinion maybe the best whiskey for cocktails. When I think about, first off, if you're just looking at American whiskey, if you're looking at bourbon versus rye, I think of bourbon as a much more, in a lot of cases, elegant, complex, layered, something I kind of want to sip neat or on an ice cube. Can make great cocktails with it, sure, but for a whiskey base in a cocktail, rye is kind of what I gravitate towards. I'm not sure exactly why. I just think it's more appropriate. I think it kind of cuts through some of the other ingredients, the assertiveness of like the spice and the floral notes. And there's always, I often get this like kind of like dark, bitter chocolate kind of thing going on with a lot of rye whiskeys. And I just feel like it cuts through the herbal liqueurs and vermouths and bitters and citrus in whatever style of cocktail you want to make. And you always know when you're drinking a rye cocktail. And so that's the main thing that I love about it is that it's almost like, where gin is such a perfect cocktail base, rye is the whiskey version of that for me.
And that's why they named you Ryan.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
My mom actually taught me that.
Okay. Words to live by. And then what was your inspiration for the Creole Sling, for the cocktail that you did for the box?
A few different things. I mean, it's if you look at the recipe, it's pretty obviously not too far of a departure from a classic cocktail, old fashioned cocktail, bittered sling, whatever you want to call it. It's that general base and format of a cocktail. But if you break down the ingredients and look at it, it's got a lot of influence from New Orleans, and the timing was such that it was right around, Mardi Gras season, and listening to some jazz from New Orleans and kind of missing travel right now and being in New Orleans, I was kind of longing for that. And that was really kind of what pushed me in that direction to create that recipe.
Okay, awesome. I think people are going to be excited about it. It's quite frankly kind of a perfect March cocktail. Like it's a super invigorating drink. That's a great way to, as you said, showcase rye as the spirit used in the cocktail. Like it's something that's perfect for rye. Whereas, there's a lot of times people have gone through some of the cocktail kits and they're like, okay, well, I've already had it as it was intended. Now I kind of want to try it a little bit differently. And so they'll get like the El Caballero cocktail, which was a low peat Scotch whiskey cocktail. And I'll say, you should try it with aged rum. I mean, it's coconut and chicory pecan bitters, which obviously cacao and date syrup. Pretty great with like a nice dry aged rum. So it's kind of nice to have a cocktail like the Creole Sling, which honestly, is so great with rye whiskey, and it's a great way to showcase that particular spirit, which is kind of
You
the
know,
point.
and also, and since you mentioned rum and everything, I don't want to detract from the rye in this cocktail, but this is another one of those cocktails where if you wanted to take the base, which is 2 ounces of rye, and split it, maybe do a split base between rye and rum, it's going to change it up a little bit, or a rye and cognac, like an old school throwback to like a Sazerac. You can certainly do that. You can take some liberties with a recipe like this and see what happens.
That's always fun. There's the Mr. Potato Head concept where you just take out different components, or the same thing before with the Diamondback with the Calvados and the yellow chartreuse. I'm sure that it's awesome. And you know what? Worst comes to worst, you make something that is maybe not your favorite, and best case scenario, you find something that's better than the original.
Yeah.
So, you had mentioned, sorry, Brendan, while we still have you, we were talking before about the Rise Up competition.
Oh yeah.
That's every year. I would love for you to be able to tell the audience what that's about, how it started, what it's for, because we're talking about the creation of really delicious rye cocktails, and that's something that you are a part of or help judge every single year.
Yeah. So Rise Up. So the full name is, as you kind of mentioned before, it has to do also with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation of Maryland. And so the whole name is Rise Up Against Cystic Fibrosis. The competition and the event itself has been around now. This will be the 10th year we've done it. We always do it kind of at the beginning of the year, usually around the first week of March, but we're pushing a little bit towards kind of the end of March. And it's going to be a virtual event. Typically, the event is around 20 different bartenders competing. Both Ryan and Donnie have been there judging now. So I know you guys know it's a fun task to say, hey, you get to taste about 20 rye cocktails and you got to figure out which one is the best. We ask the bartenders to be as creative as possible, but also highlight the rye still, not kind of moving away to like a very disguised cocktail. Still want to make sure the rye is present. And it's a whole lot of fun. I mean, typically we get around 300 to 400 people at the event. There's tons of food because we also invite a lot of restaurants from around Baltimore to be part of it. There are tasting tables for people to enjoy just the spirit by itself, so they can kind of examine it from each brand. We've looped in a lot of different brands. It's always rye because the event is called Rise Up. It was a nod to rye coming from Maryland. And another thing that is great about it is that we do have winners of the competition. We have a people's choice. So the guests who come, they get to drop a ticket as like a tip jar ticket in their in each bartender's kind of tip jar. And we have a judged portion. So the bartenders get a professional take on how their cocktail stands up. And the winners get to then, we send them off to events like Tales of the Cocktail or Lush Life's Portland Cocktail Week or some of their other events. We help with their funding to get to those things. So it's been a really great event. This year we're kind of changing it up, and we're doing it as a virtual event. We're selling a lot less tickets. This year is a little bit more to kind of keep the spirit of the event alive. That's a bad pun, by the way. You can laugh now. Anyway, so we are selling about 120 tickets. People will pick up 12 cocktails. They'll get 12 individual bottle cocktails, and they go home and they have a little more than a week to sample 12 different cocktails, and then they get to pick which is their favorite. We're also shipping out. Well, we're dropping off, and a couple people are getting cocktail packages shipped to them for our judges. This year, we asked Tyler Hudgens and Andy Seymour to judge. Been trying to get Andy on that for a long time. He's part of the beverage alcohol resource with Dave.
Now you can finally nail him down because you know where to find him at home.
I know. I can nail him down at home.
Yeah. By the way, so a couple of questions. I'm gonna pre-answer a lot of your questions out there. I did ask Brendan if they're doing something where they're like going to ship out all these drinks. It's not ready for that quite yet. Maybe next year, but it is predominantly meant to be like an in-person kind of event. We did have Betsy who asked to know how they can potentially donate to CFF in honor of Rise Up.
Sure. I mean, I think you can just go to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation's website and make a straight donation. If you are local to the Maryland area and you don't mind driving, we're doing the cocktail packages picked up at my bar, at a bar that has really done well for itself this year. They started up like almost after the pandemic started, and Mr. Nice Guy Cocktails, and also a local oyster place called True Chesapeake. So we have 3 locations where people can pick up from. I think we have about 15 tickets left. We're almost sold out. And we're also doing a silent auction. I don't know what the silent auction packages are besides something we're donating. We're donating a class for up to 12 households to do a virtual mixology bartending experience. We're teaming up with Bar Hill, if you know that gin brand. We're going to have 2 different gins, their aged gin and their classic gin, and some of their delicious raw honey. And we're going to teach you how to make a couple different cocktails out of basically those ingredients. A couple other things will be thrown into
just for that. It may be worth, if y'all are not near Baltimore but have a friend in Baltimore, buy a ticket for them so that they can come pick up the package. But then you have to tell them that your name goes into the raffle.
There you go. So we got a lot of different stuff happening still. It's not the same. It's not the way we want to be doing things, but this is obviously a very unique year, and we'd all just kind of keep using our creativity to, make lemonade here.
Thanks, Brendan, and we appreciate that. It's very funny to think that just before everything shut down, you were one of the last friends I saw, like on the other side of the country.
I mean, yeah. Rise Up happened like almost a week before this all began. And we opened our bar about 2 months. We opened Dutch Courage about 2 months before this began. So this year has been quite the wild ride for us.
Yeah.
Hey, congrats by the way on Dutch Courage. I know you've been working on it for a really long time, and I've been anticipating it for a really long time, and now I can't wait to finally go check it out.
Thank you. It's fun. I love my bar because I'm here every day.
And it's really beautiful. It's like it's an old house with like a patio out front. It's not how a lot of us in general, I think, envision a bar with like dark wood. It's bright and beautiful and airy and tall windows. And you just don't necessarily think of a bar that way, but it's bright and somehow sexy at the same time. It really is like a really attractive bar and a place you want to hang out with your friends.
Thanks, Donnie. That's like, man, I feel honored. That's like exactly what we were going for, is this bright, airy bar, but when the lights come down, it still feels sexy.
Your beard,
you can read your menu.
That's not going to go away. You know what I'm saying?
But you can read your menus, and you can like see when you reach for your cocktail, you can reach and grab your cocktail. Know that you grabbed your cocktail.
Was that a jab at Manifesto, by the way?
No. Maybe a jab at every bar that's so dark out there. But you know what? Hey, man, these eyes aren't getting any younger. So
it's like, our bar is like you have to walk up a half flight instead of those like stupid you got to walk downstairs into a basement, like those kinds of bars.
It was just more a way to do something different. That there's a bar real close that's definitely dark and moody, and it's sexy as all get out. But we just wanted to be like, hey, there's something sexy down the block. We're sexy in a different way.
Yeah. And I remember the only thing that we did not do last year is we're like, okay, you get to still walk through the competition. You still get to have this experience, but because the information we were getting at that time had a lot of holes in it, we're like, maybe we shouldn't share cocktails this time.
Yeah.
That was like the extent of
I remember that. We were
hold off on that.
Typically we're like, oh, make a cocktail. The judges will share. It's like part of being in the bar industry. You share cocktails, but yeah, I remember that too.
Like, we're going to do 3 drinks this time and hand them out.
Yeah. Were you there last year? I was trying to think about this today. Were you there last year when we had the woman who, so a little tidbit is that the judge's room also doubles as like the coat check room. And there was a woman who like passed out in the coat check area. And it turned out, were you there last year when that happened?
Yeah. Yes. Because it was in that side room.
Yeah. And then it turned out she was the one who was trying to steal stuff off of the silent auction tables.
Instant karma.
I mean, hide in the coat check area with your stolen goods, right? We caught her and we kicked her out, but it was just like, what are you doing? And she bought the expensive ticket too. Maybe she felt entitled to something to take an extra.
There's something about alcohol and kleptomania that somehow go hand in hand.
Probably.
But yeah, it's always a good time. While we're on the topic, we have a surprise guest that we weren't sure, because as we're moving into the next topic, which is our status of the hospitality industry that we talk about every time. We have Mony here, who, for those of you who've been with us for a while, you're very familiar with the Baba Let Me Tell You One Thing cocktail that hopefully a lot of you have enjoyed. And she also has one in the next box coming up with Ryan's cocktail that is outstanding, along with Spencer's cocktail. And so I want her to A, introduce herself, and B, immediately be able to tell you about what it was that she was doing today, and about the organization she started called Support Staff.
Hey, Donnie, I'm going to peace out if that's okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Brendan,
everyone, thank you. Ryan, great to see you. Donnie, great to see you.
Brendan.
I am going to definitely tune in when I can to this from now on. So
awesome.
Thank you, my friend. Good to see you.
Thanks, Brendan. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Mony.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Great to see you. I'm Mony Bunni. So I'm based out of Chicago. I'm one of the co-founders of Support Staff. So we are a nonprofit so we're a group of hospitality professionals that work alongside mental health professionals and community organizers to help destigmatize mental health and break down the dehumanizing nature of the hospitality industry and make it a much better place to work and to just like have livelihood. And so, we are about 2 years old. As officially as Support Staff ourselves, we're like a little over a year. And throughout COVID, we have done a good amount of programming. So one of the first things we did, one of the biggest projects we worked on was called the Comp Tab Relief Fund. And so through that fund, it was by hospitality for hospitality. We were able to disperse $75,000 worth of financial aid to out-of-work hospitality folks. And the cool thing with the Comp Tab Relief Fund is that because there were a lot of relief funds when COVID hit, this is a really difficult time for the hospitality industry. Something that differed our fund a little bit is that it was open to all hospitality workers, not just bartenders or servers. It was open to everyone. Everyone in the Chicagoland area, because we are a Chicago-based nonprofit, but most of our aid went to people that were at amongst the highest risk. So a lot of folks who were unable to qualify for government aid, who were unable to get any sort of unemployment benefits, a lot of independent contractors, a lot of undocumented folks. And so it was really cool seeing the support, and it was really awesome as to how many people we didn't know that we were able to give money to. So to expand it outside of our little cocktail community, which is beautiful, but the hospitality industry is so much more than just the cocktail community. So that was really awesome. We did also start the Please Hustle Responsibly podcast, which is kind of our hashtag. Our organization's called Support Staff, and a lot of people within the hospitality industry have more than one job, or at least pre-COVID, it was a lot of like pieced together work. And so everyone kind of has their side hustle, which we respect. But we do want we do want everyone to hustle responsibly, which is where that came from. That's our Instagram. I saw Donnie just put it in the chat, so you can follow us at Please Hustle Responsibly on Instagram. You can also go to our website, pleasehustleresponsibly.org, and you can see a lot of our resources. A good amount of our resources are Chicago specific, but they also, we get to do a lot of things nationally because we have all moved to a digital platform. So we have the Please Hustle Responsibly podcast, which we talk to a lot of community organizers and people in our community that are doing really great things. We've also had some insurance, like someone who works for insurance billing, who's helped you understand your insurance, what it means, if you're insured, if you're not. And then we work with mental health professionals. We are launching our educational series in a couple months called Bite Size, where they're little, 3 to 7 minute videos breaking down lots of different topics within mental health. So we're really just trying to address it as a whole and destigmatize mental health, but also to dismantle the dehumanizing nature of our business. So that's
Awesome.
what we do.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, yes, that. For those of you who are because we have people from all over the country who are subscribers and part of the Shaker and Spoon family. If you know anybody in your region that is either on the side where they're struggling and they need assistance, or they are, the kind of people who are looking to do something good and they haven't quite figured it out, but it's along this same line of mental health and support, in your community, just have them, give her a shout and contact them through their IG handle, because at the very minimum, one of the things that we've seen that's been really great among the hospitality industry in general, and again, as Mony said, it's not just about bartenders. I mean, that's our focus with Shaker and Spoon, but a lot of the projects that we've donated to or partnered with or raised money with or for have been displaced hospitality workers. And so it really runs the gamut, and everybody's in trouble right now. So we want to make sure that if somebody is in, Indianapolis, or if someone's in Lansing, Michigan, and they're looking to do something locally, rather than start from scratch and reinvent the wheel, there might be somebody out there in another part of the country who's doing something very similar and has done that work for you. And at the end of the day, just want to support you in your endeavor to, launch this idea or bring it to fruition. So definitely keep an eye on what they're doing and, share that information out in your part of the universe.
Thank you. Yeah. Unfortunately, we are just Chicago based now, but we are hoping to expand and have a couple chapters throughout the country. We're working out on building our infrastructure here, so that way it's sustainably replicable in other places, because we know that not just the Chicago hospitality industry is suffering. A lot of the hospitality industry is suffering right now, unfortunately. But this time has also been a little bit nice in that it has revealed a lot of issues in our industry that a lot of us have either ignored or, was something that we're like, well, we'll deal with it later. So now we've gotten this time to be able to address a lot of these issues, to make the hospitality industry a place where our guests want to come and they enjoy themselves and have a great time, but also the people who are working, the people who are creating your beautiful experience can also, live a good life, have a sustainable paycheck, be treated with respect, because all of that affects your mental health. And, it's, if we don't talk about it now, when are we going to talk about it?
Yeah, there's no point in putting that off. The interesting thing is, one of the questions that we've gotten quite a bit is, are you on the operation side, like bartender, server operation side, are you not worried that, especially with the really unbelievable customer service team at Shaker and Spoon, are you not worried that folks who are Shaker and Spoon subscribers and folks who are doing things virtually now are not going to want to go back to the bar? And I was like, nobody's worried about that. Like, that's not going to be a thing, because like everybody that's on this happy hour that's like nodding their head right now, everybody this is like, and all of our subscribers and all of like the fans, we're not worried about anybody disappearing from anywhere, because the moment that bars are open, like this is all we've been talking about since day one 6 years ago, is support your bartender, support your bar, and we're here to fill in the gap. So the moment the bar is open again, I really hope that it's just everyone at the bar's mental health is going to shoot through the roof, because everyone's going to be like, oh my god, it's so great to see you, we missed you.
That is the hope. Yes. Yeah, I mean, we're here in Chicago and it is very cold, so we anticipate the second, I mean, it was 45 degrees today, and I decided to ditch my winter coat because it's 45 degrees in Chicago. So I feel like the second it gets nice out, everyone is just gonna flock to patios.
Yeah, I mean, that you missed Brendan before. He was saying it's 50 in Baltimore today, so he's like, it's a perfect patio day for that. But one question related on our little hospitality corner chat. Ryan, very early on, I don't know how much the Shaker and Spoon family knows about all of the great work that your distillery did, because I think you wanted to have all the work you did branch out to the country, but Kansas City itself needed so much help that you guys were able to do some pretty great things.
Yeah, so we immediately we pivoted to hand sanitizer production, and we did it fast, and we did it really, really big. I mean, honestly, not anything we were ever anticipating or would have planned for. It was a snap decision within moments of like talking about, are we going to have to lay off 75 people, and shut down our company, to let's give this a shot. Let's see if we can produce hand sanitizer. It's 80% alcohol. Well, we've got that, let's figure out the rest of it, and then the logistics, and see what we can do. And we went from having no idea to being able to keep every single one of our employees full-time employed. We shifted over all of our bartenders, servers, kitchen employees, tour guides, you name it, over to a makeshift hand sanitizer production line. Everybody got a raise. They all got bumped up to $20 an hour from their tipped raise. And we ended up manufacturing over 100,000 gallons of hand sanitizer. And I know you mentioned it being Kansas City, but we were shipping it across the country. I mean, by March 22nd, which was like 6 days after the initial shutdown, we were shipping pallets to hospitals in New York, and we were simultaneously getting orders from Trader Joe's in California and selling it by the truckload to Trader Joe's, while also giving it away and donating it in Kansas City and in our region to first responders, nursing homes, laboratories. And I mean, it just completely, it blew up, and it was head spinning. Looking back on, I gave a presentation earlier today where I was kind of recapping that whole story and sharing some photos from it. And it's surreal looking at how fast that happened and what we did during that time. But it saved our company, first off. I mean, it literally saved our business and saved our employees' jobs. And second, it did a good thing. I mean, it helped, at least I hope it helped a lot of people, and we gave back to the community. And so
I think the lines around the corner of people, driving up the distillery, like if you,
3 miles.
Yeah. There was a map that Ryan had sent me showing the, like the shot from above of like the distillery on the road, and the fact that they had to send people in a certain way on the road to make sure that they were coming in one way down that road to do their curbside pickup.
It was absolutely wild. Unforgettable. And what's, that phase in this whole situation is past, right? The hand sanitizer thing in the beginning was a necessity, and there was a mass shortage and a high demand, and we did everything we could to help that. But now the rest of the industry is caught up, and that demand isn't there. So it's no longer, that's only going to save our business once, you know, but because of the way we did it, we're now going to be, that's going to be a part of our story forever. And we're always going to have that hand sanitizer available for, you know, the rest of the time in our gift shop, or at least part of our story, because it was just so important to everything that we did, the reason we're here now.
Yeah. Yeah. Paul made a good point with his toast. Like, a big cheers to J. Rieger & Co. on that one. You guys were honestly, like, I would send the information that you were posting to other distilleries being like, this is what you should be doing, both as your pivot and for your community. Like Charbet did it in, you know, up in Ukiah for all of Sonoma. They were getting, you know, alcohol and sanitizer to like Kaiser and other places in the area that couldn't get it. It was really, it was an inspiration to a lot of other distilleries around the country. Yeah,
it was, yeah, it's something that we're really, really proud of. And, you know, we're glad that we had the opportunity and the ability to do that. And also, you know, the last thing I would say about this is that the way that I saw, we had just opened this distillery 7 months before the shutdown. We did this huge expansion into a 65,000 square foot facility, and we went from 10 employees to 75 employees. And, you know, it was a huge change for us as a company. And to have it be at risk of falling apart so quickly like that, but yet seeing everybody come together and pull through and fight together to get through this, now it gives me more confidence than anything else. It shows me how tough we are and how resilient we are, and I think it's made us a lot stronger as a business.
The story actually worked, that sort of how you did it so quickly works really well for like the history of Kansas City, also sort of ignoring prohibition a little bit.
We did.
Which really is like, again, you'll probably be able to talk about it, you know, down the road once the laws are officially changed, but there are certain things around the country that would not have happened. People whose jobs would be gone, businesses that would be closed if they had waited for legislation to come through on these things that eventually did. So,
well, you know, what's interesting about that, you know, to kind of shift into the bottled cocktail thing and the to-go cocktail thing. I mean, that's kind of what happened in many cities around the country as well. We were one of them, where all of a sudden, you know, you had the hand sanitizer was one thing, but then how were bars and restaurants going to survive, right? If they can't have guests in and serve drinks. So you saw the to-go cocktail thing happen, and now cities are passing laws and states are passing laws that are making that permanent legislation. And in the very beginning, I mean, we were doing it as well. We were bottling our cocktails and selling them to go as one of our, you know, avenues and revenue streams to try and keep the doors open. And we actually had the city try to shut us down. And this wasn't, you know, during the pandemic, while we're also doing all this stuff with hand sanitizer. And I don't know if I can get too much into the that story. It got a little sideways, but we didn't get shut down. I mean, they tried to, but you know, we won, and you know, because we're doing a good thing. I mean, you get your, you know, back pushed up against the wall in a situation like that, and you feel the need to protect your family, protect your employees, and protect your community, you know, and all you're doing is selling a bottled cocktail, you know, to go. You're not hurting anybody. I mean, at some point you have to ask yourself, like, what's more important? You know, some silly law that doesn't really make any sense, or doing the right thing.
Right. And thankfully, you know, actual logic prevailed, which, as we know from history, does not really happen often.
Right.
Yeah. And also, Michael, don't worry, I did see you sneaking your bottle forward of the J. Rieger & Co. whiskey. So you've got at least one person on the screen right now that I see who's, you know, keeping your doors open. So
love it.
Yeah. Awesome. By the way, I want to do a real quick thing with Ryan and with Mony, asking you both some of your favorite rye cocktails. So not about your cocktails in the box, but usually what we're seeing happen now is, you know, especially with, you know, the recommendations. So this is Ryan's recommendation, this is Mony's recommendation, and this is Spencer's recommendation. People, especially when they're at the price point that they're very easily accessible. people are getting 2, if not 3 of the recommended, oh yeah, I'm seeing a lot of hands up like that right now, of the recommended, spirits for that particular month, so that people can taste like how the bartender who created it originally intended it, and also like all the permutations, and then use it as a way to, build their back bar or to try new things, or what have you. So, outside of them making their cocktails from the upcoming box, what are some favorite rye cocktails of yours that they can experiment with the rye that they have remaining? Mony, if you want to hit that first.
So I'm going to go with a classic. And this was when I first started bartending, was one of the most difficult cocktails for me to nail because of its simplicity, which is the Sazerac. This is one of my favorite, but it is one of those odd cocktails that is, to me, I kind of equate it to a martini, because you have to stir it to the point of like just before over dilution for it to kind of be in my mind a little bit like balanced, because I've had a lot that have been a little bit under diluted, and I've had some that have just been completely over diluted and you can't taste the rye at all. And there's really like that perfect little point where you can, where it's just the most beautiful, delicious cocktail, but it is so simple that you can't really hide behind anything. So, because it's just rye whiskey, Peychaud's bitters, a little bit of simple syrup or demerara, depending on what you're using, and then an absinthe rinse and a lemon peel. So it's so simple. But it is one that when I first started bartending, I had my head bartender toss out. The first time I made a Sazerac, I had my head bartender toss out 5 different attempts before he let me serve one because of the like very tight balance that you have to walk. So, but it is a delicious cocktail.
For those of you who have been to New Orleans, it's a great place to get one of the worst Sazeracs you've ever had in your life, as opposed to which is a bummer, because you can also get one of the most amazing Sazeracs in the home of the Sazerac, which is really nice. But do you have a specific do you like doing ever like a 50-50 base split with cognac?
I do, yeah. I actually have played around a lot with doing a 50-50 split with a brandy de Jerez, because I'm a sherry lover, and there's a lot of really beautiful Spanish brandies out there that have been finished in sherry casks, and just that little bit of nuttiness I really, really appreciate. So,
and yeah. Paul, you just got your wish without even her knowing that was your request, unless you saw that in the chat. Paul was like, I wonder if she has any like thoughts on, I don't know, a rye cocktail with sherry in it. So you're sort of halfway there,
Oh, I mean, sherry, my salt, because I put it in everything and I love it so much.
It's we made a couple of really cool shaker and spoon products that are sherry-like in nature, again, because we don't ship any alcohol. But in order to bring that thing that you're looking for, whether it's like nuttiness or like, and honestly, we've had it in a couple of different drinks now, where like Suzu made the cocktail with the black sesame syrup for the Japanese whiskey box. Sesame's a great one also. I mean, Mony's upcoming drink with the baklava syrup, like I can't shut up about it. It's outstanding. I mean, Ryan, don't get me wrong, your cocktail's so good. But like there are those things that are just such interesting cocktail components, and both the last time with your it was like Arabic tea syrup, I think is what you called it. And then of course this time with the baklava syrup, it's kind of idiotically good. So sherry and things that are dry. Obviously Ryan's a fan of sherry as well. It's in his actual whiskey. And that's a good segue. I want to hear about some of your favorite rye cocktails, Ryan.
Well, first off, I want to say that a split-based Sazerac with brandy de Jerez, holy shit, that sounds amazing. I have to go try that now. I've never had that before, and that sounds awesome. The Sazerac, I agree 100% with Mony. It is art in a glass, and it is, in my opinion, maybe one of the best or most, I don't know, important drinks to execute perfectly from a technique perspective. It's a really good test of a bartender's skill, you know, just in executing these like the simple combination of ingredients, but it has to be done just perfectly. And it's just an absolutely transcendent cocktail that I absolutely adore. So aside from the Sazerac, one of my favorites is another classic, but it's not a very well-known classic. It's called a Frisco. And it's like a sour essentially with rye whiskey and Benedictine lemon juice shaken up. It's really simple and straightforward. It's just not one that people have heard of a lot. And I like to encourage people to always have a bottle of Benedictine at their bar or in their house. So that's one of the drinks that you can make with Benedictine, and it's just refreshing. The rye kind of cuts through everything, and you know you're drinking a rye cocktail, bracingly cold, strong, but just delicious. I love that drink.
And I mean, if you already have the rye and the Benedictine at home, you know, you may as well.
You can do some other things with it as well. You can get creative.
There isn't one yet, like online database where you can just plug in a couple of ingredients and really get like, here are some classics, here are some, you know, new creations, all with those things just based on what you have at home. But those are two ingredients that are pretty fun to have, and quite frankly, like a brandy or a cognac. One thing that I would love for both of you to, thank you, those are both great ideas, that I'd love for you to both talk about is, since you are both already Shaker and Spoon alum and you have a cocktail coming up in this upcoming box, and you both had like, you were definitely group favorites in the past. One of the comments here just reminded me where Maya said, you know, Mony's Baba cocktail was my very first Shaker and Spoon cocktail. I'll be forever hooked now. I'll happily drink anything she tells me to. So that's a testament to that drink. And like Ryan's drinks in the past, people have just lost their minds over. I'd love to get your perspective on when you're creating a cocktail and then you see it actually come to fruition, and then you watch everyone's reactions to it, what that's like. Because it's a very different scale of like than handing something to someone over a bar.
Yeah. So you're talking about like giving someone like an original creation for the first time, giving it to them for the first time, or just serving it for the first time in general?
No, one of the things that you had mentioned to me a couple weeks ago is that you were excited to taste your own drink. You said,
oh,
I'm
yeah,
really looking forward to like, you know, tasting my creation once it arrives, and I can rebuild it through like the Shaker and Spoon, you know, format. And it'll be, and the fact that like it's been great for you in the past to see how other people have been enjoying your drinks. I'm wondering, like, what is that experience like, taking something as opposed to coming up with an idea for an original cocktail, making it for a patron who's right in front of you, and then seeing like 1,000 pictures of it and posts of it?
Oh, it's great. But you know what's really cool about it is that it's the Shaker and Spoon concept that makes that possible. You guys take our recipes, you take our creative ideas, and then put it in a format that just feels really special, you know, and it feels really special at home. We can create a really special atmosphere and experience for our guests in our bar, where the drink is only part of that experience, and you're kind of orchestrating everything else around it. But you guys have found a way to do that at home by the way that you package it, the way you receive it. You know, I'm a member of a couple of other subscription services, and I always enjoy getting. I have a subscription to a monthly cigar club where I get cigars every month, and that's always exciting every month to get my cigars and open it up and read the tasting notes of the cigars. It's exciting, you know, and I think that's what really makes it special. And you know, knowing that you guys have so many people that are into it and appreciate what you're doing, and then reading about a drink that I created, it's just really neat. It's fun. You know, we're in the hospitality business. We're here to make people smile and make dreams come true. So thanks for helping facilitate it.
Totally. And Mony, I'm sorry to tell you, you're not the only special guest. Apparently Moose is also one of our special guests today.
He's pretty vocal, yeah.
Is he gonna come hang out, or
he might, yeah.
Okay, all right. Mony, how about that? How is that experience for you, of it, like seeing that come full circle?
It's been really humbling, honestly. Like, I always used to joke around and like, there's not very much stuff I'm good at, but making drinks is one of the things that I'm good at. But just to see people making my cocktail and really loving it and like being tagged on all these things has just been so amazing. But for me, with the Baba, let me tell you one thing, that was a really personal cocktail for me because Baba, let me tell you one thing, is something that I've heard my entire life, which is how my father starts lectures or literally anytime he wants to spin yarns. And this is, I always like to incorporate my heritage, my background, my ethnicity into my cocktails that I create. First generation Arab American, and it, hasn't always been the easiest time growing up. And so to get to share, especially like, I don't, not getting political or anything, but like in a post 9/11 world, it is not fun being Arab. And so to be able to share the beauty of my culture and where I come from, and my family with people through the flavors that I incorporate in my drinks, and to have people really respond very well to them was something that was so special to me. And then I had to go tell my father, my Baba, about this cocktail that was inspired by him, and he just it was adorable. But yeah, it was a really humbling experience.
And obviously, people have loved both of your drinks over this past year has definitely been an interesting year for everyone. But over the past couple of years, that Ryan has also been, with us submitting really great cocktails. So this one's going to be a fun one, having all three Shaker and Spoon alum, including Spencer, whose drink last time just, totally crushed it. So it's going to be very fun. We only have a couple of minutes left. I wanted to make sure that everybody who had their questions for you got them through. Let's see. Okay, that one got answered. Okay, great. Then the one thing we're going to do is we're going to do our trivia, which we do at the end of every happy hour, which is kind of a reward for those who stick around past all of like the stories and whatnot. So the first one I'm going to do is actually a trivia from Brendan, and because we knew that he wouldn't be able to stick around. So the way that we do it is I'm going to ask the question. You have to actually be the first one to post the correct answer in the chat. So if you haven't had the chat open, make sure you hit the chat button on the bottom center, open up the chat on the right, and you have to actually have it submitted first before anyone else. So Brendan's is it's a really big prize. So it's a two-parter and it's not easy. So he definitely made it a little more difficult for you guys. So it's a two-parter. Number one is, and it's a layup for Baltimore drinkers. What was the Baltimore area rye that's most recently produced by a Kentucky distiller, but is now no longer available in Baltimore? That's part one. Part two is, what is the name of the rye produced in northern Maryland and southern Pennsylvania region that's named after the river? I know that there's some Googling happening right now. you just know that that's happening out there. Okay. Paul, super close, but yeah. I was really hoping that someone was going to say the Muggles. That is not accurate, but it's funny. Yeah, and then don't forget the first one, the name of the Baltimore area rye. And I'll even kick it up a notch. No, Paul, it's not Muggle tea. What was the Baltimore area rye most recently produced by Heaven Hill? So you just have to hit me with both answers to get this prize. Okay, Toby got it. Done. Boom. Well done. Okay, nicely done. Okay, so the answer is Pikesville Rye, and it is the Monongahela River. So congratulations on that one. Congratulations to Toby. And then the second question is actually funny. It's a Michael, stop showing off with all your whiskeys, dude. We're gonna all come over to your house afterwards now that we know that you have everything. Mony, I'm gonna have you ask these two questions. Hold on a second. Let's see.
Did I get two questions?
Yes, I wrote two questions because, again, I didn't know whether or not you were going to be able to join us. I'm going to text them to you right now because I would rather that you actually read them than me. It's much more impactful that way. Okay, great. I have sent you the questions and the answers, which you already know, but they are now on your phone.
Okay. So who is the inspiration for the Baba Let Me Tell You One Thing? And where is that person from?
Let's see if anybody gets it. It's a two-parter, guys.
And then
yes, he is from Earth, but that's not going to work.
Not Persia, not Iran. Very close, next door neighbor.
You guys got to get both. You're okay. Wait, hold on. It was Coughlin's. The Coughlin's got that one, I think, was the first one, which is great because you guys were super close on the first one and didn't quite get it. So let me lay this out for you. For Toby, Toby's actually going to get all of the components of the Diamondback. So Ethan Terry, who's actually right there in the middle of my screen right now, he is actually going to make sure that you get a Chartreuse. And a Sagamore Rye is going to be coming your way, and then a Laird's apple brandy. So you'll be able to actually recreate that full cocktail at home that Brendan made for you. And let's see. And then the Coughlin's are actually going to get a Baba kit, and we're going to send you a mystery whiskey to make with it. Because that was from our bourbon box, but we're going to send you a mystery whiskey so that you can recreate that cocktail at home, which is a delicious cocktail. And if you would both be so kind, can you please send the email address, the one that you used to subscribe to Shaker and Spoon? Please actually chat the Shaker and Spoon user here in the chat and send them that email address so that we can track you down, because that's kind of an important part of how we find you. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us. It is another terrific happy hour, and we look forward to having you join us for the next one. Really excited for the rye boxes to come out. They're so delicious, and I know that everyone's waiting for literally all eyes on rye right now. And thank you, of course, to our guests Ryan Maybee and Brendan Dorr, and our special surprise guest Mony Bunni. Thank you for joining us, and Ethan Terry, thanks for joining us as well. And to everybody in the Shaker and Spoon family, thank you. Be kind to each other, support your local bartender, and we'll see you guys all very soon. Bye, guys.